What's going on YouTube? This is John of Team Gradelock here for another deck profile. It's gonna be OTT. This deck also got a recent top.
Everyone's favorite clan.
Yeah, everybody loves this clan. This deck got a recent top at the ARG that happened at Game On.
First place.
For technicality, first place. Got the champion map because we split for top 4, but I wanted to play off with the champion map. Played a really good game against Nubatama and got champion map. And I'm going to talk about this deck and why the choices that I made, why I think it's good, and you know, all that good stuff. We start with Lozenge Magus because superior. Even Bushy knows this. I made an image rare of her, which I will have at some point. Don't egg on me, please. I just don't want to pay $65 for it because TCG player's okay, but 5% kickback kills me.
It smells like broken here.
It smells like broken. And then quick flex, real quick, is protect markers. We got almost everything. Again,
weird flex, but okay.
Again, Miyagi. I'll get the Miyagi one soon. And shout outs to Joseph Lavaguth for making this nice ass protect marker. Favorite series, favorite marker is a stretch, but like the card a lot.
Gave him like half of them.
Yep. And then we'll start with triggers because that's the easiest thing to explain. We're gonna talk about the draw PG Mist. Yeah, it's a draw PG. Not much more to explain about that. It's just a good card. You run this even in decks that draw a bunch of cards. And then the fun part of this deck, we run 2 Nike and 2 Nike. We run 2 Psychic Bird and 2 Psychic Bird. 8 crits because the deck needs as many crits as it can take, and crits win games. So, and we draw, so we need to crit our opponent as much as we can because sometimes we draw these.
If you had 12 crits, would you play him?
No, I would not.
Very good.
Maybe 10. But I don't think it's healthy for this game to have more than 8 crits. And then 2 heals and 2 heals because heals also win games. This 20k shield is huge, and the luxury, not the luxury, but like just the elbow room of being able to take an extra damage is really good. Now onto grade 1s. This deck hasn't changed all too much. People do make their own choices, but we run 4 Circle Megas. This +1 is very important. All I'm going to say about it is that we're in an Excel meta, and I think a card that +1s to the hand, just for a counterblast early in the game, is really important. Because when you're getting rushed, at least Circle Megas can give you cards to recompensate the rush and maybe fight back at your opponent. And her second skill of being able to put back 1 and draw 1 has become a lot better, but it's in explanation with another card. You run 2 Gemini. I wish I could play more of this card, to be honest. This card is good because the cost of Counterblast in the deck has gotten a lot higher, and Soul to an extent, and I don't know. Going forward, I don't see the deck ever not needing this card unless we get a better source of countercharge management.
It gives you both resources.
Again, I wish I could play more, but space is really tight. And then one of the newer grade 1s is Core Magus. This card's really good. Its effect is on place on Vanguard or Rearguard. You get to look at your top 2 and then put them back at the top in any order. This is especially good at 3 separate points. This is the 3 points that comes up the most in playtesting. When you ride it, she says specifically this: when you ride on top of Lozenge Magus, that's how you know it's the superior starter, you get to reorganize the top 2. You get to do either skill first. So you would use her skill to reorganize the top 2 and then draw a card. And then, you know, that in itself is good because if you're I only do that if I'm missing out on a specific grade to ride, because then it helps me guarantee, you know, a card in my hand that I would want. Oftentimes I will ride Circle Magus in place of her, but the fact of when I'm missing something, I can ride her to fix it is important. And even if she's the only card I have to ride, like, who cares? At least she has a skill when she's ridden upon. Her other application where she's good is
all game.
When you use her, I guess. Sure. When you use her with Tetra Magus and you see a normal unit and a trigger on the top of your deck, you reorganize it to put the normal trigger on the top. Use skills to draw the normal unit on top of that, and then you know, you get to the trigger and you can potentially, with cards like Tetra Magus, put another trigger there. And then her third application that comes up the most is when you're on Amaterasu as your first ride. You call her first. You look at your top 2, and then three things can happen. You see the normal. Sorry, two things. You see the normal unit and the trigger. So you reorganize the normal unit on top, trigger on the bottom, draw with Amaterasu the normal unit, leave the trigger obviously. Or if they're both normal units, then you draw the normal unit you want and put the non-one on the bottom. Or if they're two triggers, you just thank yourself for being so good at this game. Leave it right there. Don't pay any costs, and your opponent just cries because if they know, then they know there's two triggers on the top of your
3 damage, no guard, 2 crits. Just
but yeah, those are the main points. Her other application, which barely comes up, is if you have called her and you see 2 normal units on the top of your deck, you can use Circle Magus to, when you drive check one of the normal units, you shove it on bottom, draw the second normal unit, and then you may have the third card be a trigger, so it's better to at least have that little bit of a chance. So those are the applications where she can come up. She's a decent card. She's a very good card.
Basically, like, information is super powerful in this game, and the more you know is, like, better. The fact that it just checks top 2 for free is, like, insane.
You can't move it, so it's only really good with other cards, but those other cards are either your Vanguard or your rear guards. You just need to see those other cards, and you know the biggest thing about this deck that makes it really good is it has deck manipulation and hand advantage. So if it's able to hit triggers and maintain a big hand, it's really powerful. And then its other 2 cards, the other 2 cards are the only card from Mayaji. It's 2 Tetra Magus. Her effect is when you have a grade 3, that's the only time you're able to proc it. You counterblast 1, you draw a card, and you can stack a crit on the top of your deck. It's very good because if you keep drawing your crit triggers and you need them for certain, if you need them back in your deck, it lets you put them back in your deck. The application with Core Magus is important. The application with cards like Amaterasu can be important. And you don't have to put the crit on the back of your deck. If you're actually struggling, you can pay a counterblast and just draw a card. This is prominent against Excel. Sometimes you just want to straight up draw a card. And at least she does that. At least this is not a grade 1 that's just plays and does nothing. Because that's what Circle Magus ends up being after she's written.
Yeah.
And then on to grade 2s. We run 4 Promise Daughter. She's gotten in technicality worse, but her effect is never bad. If you have 4 cards in hand, she's a 15k attacker. Happens all the time, practically. If you don't have 4 cards in hand, you're just losing. And she can't be retired. She can be chosen, but she can't be retired by card effects. This is prominent against Kagero and Shadows, but it's not prominent against Narukami and soon-to-be deleters. So she can be killed, but you still play her because she's the freest 15k attacker around. But yeah, like you don't not run beat sticks like this if they come to you that easy. Then you play 3 Mei. Really back and forth with this option. This spot in the grade 2 lineup is the really weird flex spot, but I ran Mei because the biggest thing about this card is that she manipulates your deck for literally free. You can rush with this, and against certain matchups, mainly the mirror and against angels, sometimes you need cards like this to just be able to play and manipulate your deck around so that. Okay, the main thing about it in matchups like those is that you don't want to be hitting draw PGs. You want to be just drawing them off the top of your deck or drawing them through skills. And you don't want to be using cards that have cost to counterblast and draw.
Yeah.
So, at least a card like this, it's free with Amaterasu to just give her power. In matchups like those, you can manipulate your deck in a way where you don't drive check draw PGs, you just put them on bottom for free. Because that happens in late game. Sometimes it comes out of deck out scenario with both, and she's just free. Like you're gonna deck manipulation for free is really good. And honestly, the two spot right here is really weird. But I just ran this because it's flexible, it rushes, and it manipulates for free.
There's nothing wrong with knowing what the top card of your deck is.
It's only weird if you know it's a trigger and you need to keep it there, but. Hey, more power to Amaterasu.
I mean, that you don't want to do a draw skill because you got a crit on top of the deck or a heal.
And then newest card, I will say this is probably the second. Promised Daughter is good, but like this card, this card gives you so much advantage back.
That card is fucking unfair.
That's one way to describe it. Rectangle Magus. We run this from starter deck. On place, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1. You check your top 2. You reorganize them in any way. You draw a card, and then you and then that's it. And then its rearguard skill is every time you check a trigger, it gets 5k. Its applications is that it's a really good beater. It digs through your deck, and it's one of the only rearguards that if you know there's a trigger on the top of your deck, you can still call this and gain advantage, because more than likely not, you can move the normal unit that's underneath the trigger and draw it, and then still leave the trigger on the top. And this, in certain matchups like Kagero, Shadow Paladins, matchups where you're losing advantage inherently, this card will gain you resource back, because it's just on place, play yourself, and just add a card to your hand. This is also really good on its own on the rearguard circle, because it allows you to do L shape throughout the whole game. It allows you to have one rearguard, and booster in matchups where you need to, because one trigger, if you add it to her, makes her 24. Ideal scenario, like Promised Daughter and an 8k makes 23, so you're always forcing out good shield value with just 3 rearguards. But all in all, like, it's a really good card. Like, it gets old trigger value for hitting triggers. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like,
you hit 2 triggers. Like, oh my god, that card's so free.
It's just a really good card. And then onto grade 3s. You can probably it hasn't changed.
Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah, for Amaterasu, it's the best grade. It's the best first ride. It's the best ride to stay stuck on. Its effect is act, counterblast 1, and draw a card. You get to look at the top card of your deck and put it on top or bottom. Every time you drive check a trigger, she gets 5k. This is good because...
No, every time you check the top card of your deck.
What did I say?
You said when you check a trigger, you were stuck on her.
Yeah, I looked at Rectangle, and I was also thinking of Tetramegas, because I was about to say that I think she's better than Tetramegas, because the fact is that if you're stuck on her, you can constantly keep using her.
Guess Murakumo, you're stuck on her. At least you gotta draw a card every turn and then know what's on top of your deck.
And even if they Zambaku lock you, you still draw a card, and then you could stack a defensive trigger if they Zambaku lock you. At the very least.
If you keep you stunned, oh look, a draw on top of my deck. Leave it there, take the first damage. Draw trigger. Ooh.
The card is just very good, and it's always been good. It's even a very good rearguard. Like
OTT just gets free power on like cards, and they get the top deck knowledge at all times.
And
draw so they can maintain their hand. Protect the gift so that helmet stays nice and tight. It's just such a good claim.
It's a very good claim.
Very strong.
And then for Imperial Daughter, it's the best mid-game that exists for OTT right now.
Oh my god.
It's 15k in a crit if you ride it. This is literally... I personally...
When you ride it over a 3.
Yes, I'm sorry. When you ride over 3, the 50k in a crit happens. But when you ride it in general, you get to counterblast 1, look at your top 2, and then put one in your hand. You have to put one in your hand, and then the other one can go on the top of your deck or into the soul. This is prominent because sometimes if you see 2 dead normal units there, you can put one in your hand and put one in your soul. If you see 2 triggers, it's kind of annoying. I'll admit that. If you see 2 triggers, it's kind of annoying, but it's shielded and a trigger.
I mean, getting 1 trigger per twin drive is
at
ideal.
Least guaranteeing that, at least it's what makes the deck very good. And then, like, that's not even what makes her good. What makes her good is the inherent 15k and a crit that she gives. You literally win matchups against Excel when you're not supposed to, because Imperial Daughter gets 15k and a crit.
Yeah, and they're like, they can't deal with her every turn.
And against Force, against Force, the 27 is weak, but then her second skill can compensate this, because her second skill is Soul Blast 1, give a unit 6k. She either fixes rearguard columns so that they reach 23k, or she fixes her, not fixes, but makes her attack more scary, because if you know they don't have a PG in their hand, you make her 33 on her own or 41 with the booster. Like,
boldly saying, especially because the deck that she's in, I think she's the best VR in the game, the entire game.
More than likely not, yes. This is, I'll say, one of the best grade 3s to keep riding. You are happy when you see multiple copies of this in your hand. The only other grade 3 that's better than this if you see multiple copies in your hand is Waterfall, because Kagero is literally on their cane. It's only held up by Waterfall.
Waterfall's a good VR, but when you have a grade 3 that gives you 15 a crit,
draws a card,
can stack the top of your deck, can soul charge you a card,
and fix
rearguard columns, or herself, because she can give herself the 6k.
It's a really good card. I'm not going to deny that this deck is good.
Gets 4, she can swing for 33.
I'm not going to deny that this deck is good, and it says a lot. I'm just going to say it says a lot when...
Oh, John, you're forgetting one grade 3, man.
Oh, no, I'm going to get to it. I'm just saying, it's saying a lot when literally the deck is held up by all of its old cards in terms of why it's good.
And this is Q4.
Yes, this is Q4 support. It's held up by Amaterasu, Imperial Daughter, and, you know, obviously we can't forget Victoria's Deer.
Oh, my God.
Victoria's Deer, on top of everything that the deck already does, on top of all the plussing it does, on top of all the power, the raw power it already gets, like, this doesn't... This also just... pushes the not the skill ceiling, the kill ceiling.
It's like that cherry right on top of you.
Because this makes it so, for people that don't know, for people that have never had the pleasure of facing this card,
consider yourself honored.
This Soul Blast 2/3s and discard a card could be the protective that you have by riding it if you decide to ride it. You check your top 7, you look for up to 2 crits, and then you stack them there. The rest go on the bottom and shuffle. And then 6 of your units get 10k. Had to shove that in real quick because, you know, it's not that important.
It's not that important.
This is a really good card because, like, it literally distributes 60k power to the board. It makes it so that your lines are Neo-Nectar numbers. It not guarantees, because I know...
Guarantees.
Not guarantees. This gives you the high chances of having crits on the top of your deck, and with cards like Tetramagus, it also can guarantee at least one. But all I'm saying is that with this card, no matter when you do it, you either giving your board so much power to the point where your opponent has to waste a lot of cards from their hand to guard it, or if it's like a mid-game scenario, your opponent might die because you hitting 2 crits. Like, some decks may not have the hand early in the game, especially if they have 7 cards, to guard a Vanguard that's about to get 2 crits, or a Rearguard that's about to get 2 crits.
Or a crit on crit on both columns.
Yeah, but I'm talking about a scenario when they're at 3. When they're at 4,
right.
When they're at 4, they may just die early game,
yep.
Especially if you just hit the 2 crits.
And if they're on 5 and you don't see any crits,
it doesn't matter.
Your board is so big that 1 column is enough to kill them.
Also, if you don't see crits, because this card says shuffle to the bottom, you have a higher chance of still seeing
triggers.
two crits.
Yep.
Because your draws and your heals might get shuffled to the bottom, but if you still have some crits in your deck and you don't see them off the top 7, they may come after the top 7.
Yep, they might have been in the top 9, not in the top 7.
But you know, like,
you know, the support's so solid that, like, wave 1 is carrying them while some clans are on wave 3,
and they're still like,
they're still not in the same position in the meta as they are.
Like, the main thing that's made it strong is what's made it always been strong. Like, their Vanguards are actually obnoxious. Like, their Vanguards are really dumb. They have one of the best first rides, they have one of the best mid-game, late-game cards, and they have one of the best kill cards. Because this thing rivals, like almost every kill card. This thing, even when the set came out, this rivaled Soul Saver because, like...
With cards like Waterfall, you deal with 1 threat. With Deer, you deal with 3. You deal with the whole board you have to look at. Like, the main thing that upped this deck and why it's meta now, in my opinion, I don't know. Like, people, been meta.
Sure, but what makes it better now is the better rearguards that we get. The rectangles.
That card puts in so much work. The
Tetramaguses, the cores, like I've been saying that the Vanguards are really good, but I don't know. I guess you could say I'm selfish and I've asked for better rears and they gave me better rears. Like, these rears.
That's crazy. Yeah.
These rears are just infinitely better. Rectangle, like, picks you up on advantage if you're losing. This puts triggers back in your deck. This makes your stacking even better. And all in all, the deck's good for the reasons it has been good before. And it's only been getting better because of the rearguards. In my opinion, what makes OTT really good, and if you guys want to pick this up as a meta call, pick this up because you genuinely like OTT. What makes OTT so good is they address what you need to win Vanguard games. Triggers, hand advantage, and numbers.
and they do it in spades. Free power, whether it be a 5k just for hitting a trigger, setting a trigger on top of the deck, stacking your deck, stacking the deck, free 15 for riding, and a crit. Free power just from checking the deck. Free 10k to the whole board. Like, and you're doing this at the same time. You're not just, okay, this turn I'm just going to draw cards. No, this turn is drawing cards, making sure there's a trigger on top of the deck. It does what you need to win Vanguard.
Literally every turn is stacking a trigger, getting power, and drawing it.
Which is all you need to win this game. You know, you don't need fancy mechanics. And this man right here has been playing OTT since its inception in Standard, but also in G era, even the ancient times. In G
era, it had its own problems, but now it addressed in a game where it's more simplified. It addresses it addresses almost every issue of Vanguard. Like,
you know, this deck is so good that even in premium OTT they play the same cards.
Unfortunately,
people want to say standard and premium is so different. I'm not going to get into that argument, but in premium they play the exact same cards.
And I guess I don't know. The only other thing I really want to talk about is matchups. The only matchups I said this before. The only matchups I still feel I struggle against are Excel decks. Mainly, I'm going to talk about Golds and Murakumo, and Angel Feathers is the only protected deck that I feel this deck struggles against. Angel Feather you struggle against because you can't deal with a heal, protect marker every turn, because there's times that you may just deck out against them, which is why I run 11-2s if you were counting, and I try to make sure that I can rush them as much as possible. And sometimes, sometimes the rushing that you do can just like kill them. If they're not ready, they can just die. But if at any other point you have to play the deck out game with them, and you may lose, but you just have to play your skills right. Try Treacher Magus to draw cards and stack crits.
And hope your deer's good.
Yeah, hope your deer's good. Do multiple deers. Try to do multiple deers in that matchup.
Hardest matchup in the entire game is probably Murakumo.
But yeah, it's last. Golds is hard because Golds is hard for the same reason it's hard for everybody. If they get to Ravenhair fast, it's really hard for you to come back.
Because you're not prepared yet.
But that's why you run the Circle Maguses. That's why you run Rectangles and multiples of. Because if you see them early, you can recoup even if you get stuck on even if you're on 1 and they're at 3, because at least then you're drawing cards, at least then you're attacking their rear guards, and they may not have the hand to even survive a first Amaterasu and then an Imperial Daughter. I'm not joking when I say sometimes they just die by Imperial Daughter.
Yeah, sometimes it's dying on Amaterasu. You see a crit on top of the deck, they have a 4-card hand, 5-card hand because they overextended. And you just tap.
And then Murakumo is a deck that makes you fair because Zembaku says you're stuck on Amaterasu, and that's your best case scenario.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, that's your best case scenario. If you're stuck on Imperial Daughter, you need to draw Rectangles and you need to draw Tetramaguses. But at least then she gives you plus 6,000 power to the board, at least every turn. And if you're stuck on Deer, I cry for you, but...
Yep. This is a deck that wants to ride 3 at almost every turn. Like literally every turn you want to be on a new 3, gaining the free 15s and the crit, gaining the power. So you have the 2 3s in the soul for this guy. And when Murakumo says, yeah, you're stuck on your first 3 you rode,
it becomes exceedingly difficult, but at least Amaterasu is good for gaining power, and she's good as a rear guard even, because that +5 is also happens on the rear guard as well.
Do feel like percentage-wise, because you guys, you don't have to win all your games. You wanna win like 70%, 80%. You want to win a percentage of your games. Against Murakumo, I feel like the percentage is in their favor, just because we all know how the triangle works for Vanguard. Protect, Excel, Force. They're not only stopping you from riding, they're Excel, they go wide, attack you a bunch of times. John knows this better than anyone. Hates Murakumo with a passion.
Stick the deck. It's unfair.
He named his deck. What'd you name your deck?
Please no Murakumo.
Yeah, please no Murakumo.
I took this to an event. This, not this.
Like, oh, it was Neo's.
No, I took. No, that was different because I took this deck to an ARG when it was pre-support, still the first wave.
Oh yeah, you were like, please no Murakumo.
Please no Murakumo. Guess what happened? Murakumo in top 8.
Oh.
you don't get your fun.
You don't get fun.
But you know, like at least it's always had a fighting chance against them, and it's even a better fighting chance now that Rectangle exists. I'm gonna just end that by saying this: your Vans have always been good, but your Regards are better. And people are gonna, I guess, hate me for playing this deck, but like you play a deck because you like it. I like OTT. I love the Lord Masaki. I just like Amaterasu. It's one of the decks I got into the game with. Don't hate on me for that. I just like playing what I play, and everybody should. Regardless, thank you guys for watching. Everyone who made it through, I appreciate you the most. If you would hit that like and subscribe button, it would be greatly appreciated for more content like this. We'll have more profiles and matches coming in later. So thank you guys for watching. Check out more of the channel, and deuces!